Spyderco pocket stones are an interesting one. They're the best pocket stones I've used, but they're still lacking a lot in my opinion, and I'll get to why in this video. I'm going to start with some sharpening to show you the types of edge you can expect, as I know you've got about 90 seconds worth of attention span remaining. I find sharpening with pocket stones pretty difficult, and I'm sure most of you will too, so the edges that I'm going to show here are a limitation of my skill, but likely indicative of what you'll be able to achieve also. I'm going to use this Spyderco MagnaCut Mule, and I'm going to dull it first, just lightly. Just make sure that that's no longer able to cut paper. So we've got some paper. Yeah, that's pretty dull. Oh, we're just about cutting there. Dull a bit more. Okay, that's dull. I'm just going to use the double stuff 2 here. I think realistically this is the best option that they've got, and the edge is going to be similar because you can finish on the fine. So I'll sharpen here and then we'll talk more about it. So I'm just going for a real coarse edge here initially. I'm going to go off the CBN side, just form a burr, flip the burr, and then remove it, and just do some cut tests with a real coarse edge, show you what it can do. So the burr is big enough here for me to feel that. So I'm not sure in the middle. Yeah, there's a burr there. So I'm just going to swap that over. So there's a big burr there, so I'm going to minimize some of it on the CBN, because otherwise I'll be here all day. And then I'm not going to really refine the edge on the ceramic, but I will knock off any large burr that's remaining. Okay, that looks pretty decent for a very coarse edge. I'm just gonna kind of tell you what this feels like first, because it's difficult to convey through a sharpness test. So this is pretty grabby. Doesn't feel ultra keen. I've not done the greatest job ever. So this is the same piece of paper we were cutting before. I'm going to do like a draw cut through this. That feels really grabby through there. I'm just going to zoom in and show you kind of what this really coarse CBN edge looks like. So it looks really coarse, because it is really coarse. I'm going to refine the edge a bit more on the fine side and do a strop, and then kind of show you what type of edge you can get off that. So that CBN side is really coarse, and you get a lot of big particles sticking up, and you therefore won't necessarily form a burr that is consistent in kind of thickness across the whole length of the apex. Some of those really big particles will push a big lump of steel over. So as you're deburring, you might not kind of catch all of that. So I'm just refining a bit more on the fine ceramic to try and remove some of those chunks of burr. Now that will kind of refine out a lot of that aggressive tooth, but you'll get more keenness. But it really does depend on what you're actually using the knife for. If you're just, if for some reason you aren't using a utility blade to open boxes and you work in a warehouse, I know there's tons of you guys out there for some reason using your own knives in warehouses. I don't get it, but if you are doing kind of like warehouse work, cutting through straps and boxes, that really coarse edge is just going to perform better for you anyway. Right. I really hate these Magna Cut mules from Spyderco. I think there's a ton of retained austenite in there, and I get this really gummy burr that's real difficult to get rid of. So I'm going to just try giving it a quick strop. And I don't think this is cheating because it's a little tiny bit of basswood, which you can carry with your pocket stone anyway. And no, I would not suggest putting compound on those leather pouches for reasons I shouldn't need to explain. So I'm just going to give it a quick strop on 1 micron. It's not grabbing the basswood, so I'm thinking we got rid of the real nasty CBN gouges with the fine ceramic. The reason I'm sometimes doing more passes on one side than the other is because I can feel I've under-angled it, and I've, the pass was effectively ineffective. It's really difficult for me to work around this tripod. I can't really see what I'm doing. So we'll just have another quick look at the blade. It's going to look basically the same as it did, because that CBN scratch is so deep. We will not have really cleaned that up at all. There you can see. You can see a slight shine near the apex where I've micro beveled a little bit on the ceramic. So let's try the paper again. So here's some paper. We'll try a bit of a draw cut through it. Yeah, that's much cleaner than it was off the CBN. It's basically a push cut. Yeah, so push cuts too. So this is me from the future just splicing in a quick video clip here. I said I was going to redo it to be hair whittling, but I just noticed it already does. As you can see, this is the original super scratchy CBN edge here, so I've not gone away and kind of done any cheating. And here is a hair, and it splits it. So surprisingly, that real coarse edge may be sharper than you think. Realistically, I think that's the type of edge you should be aiming for with pocket stones. Sure, you can get much better than that. You can get hair whittling off these things, no problem. But what is the point in doing that? I'm kind of coming down to the issue of why do pocket stones even exist and why would you even want them? I think there's very few cases that anyone would ever need or want pocket sharpening stones. I think the first thing we discussed about before is you use a knife for work and for some reason you insist on using your own knife rather than a utility blade, then you may need to sharpen on the job if you're opening thousands of boxes a day. but I would say maybe just use Rex 121 or Maximate and sharpen when you get home, rather than refreshing while you're on the job. But that's potentially a use case. I think the next one would be kind of where I sit, which is you're a sharpening fanatic, and as soon as your knives don't whittle hair anymore, they've immediately got to go on the stones. So you carry one of these around with you, and some basswood with compound on it. I think another very valid reason would be if you're going out in the field for an extended period of time and you won't have proper stones to take care of your knife, and that's when these come in again. But other than that, I don't really think they make much sense. You shouldn't be needing to resharpen your knife during the day, during use. If your edge isn't lasting you until you get back home, I think you need a different steel. So I kind of want to talk about these, like the quality of the Spyderco stones now, and the different types. So we've got just a Spyderco medium on its own. We've got an original double stuff, which is a fine and a medium glued together, and we've got the double stuff 2. The double stuff 2 is by far the best one, and I'm going to kind of go in reverse order here. So the mediums, I don't know if you can see that. They always seem to be bent. It's curving in this way and out that way. It doesn't really seem to have an effect on my sharpening jobs. I'm sure you will end up getting a tiny bit of convexity out of sharpening on that. Doesn't really seem to affect me, but I know most of us knife and sharpening guys are super OCD, so that's probably going to really annoy most of you. These all seem to be bent. I don't know why. I've had loads of these. They're always bent. Then we go to the double stuff, the original double stuff, just called the double stuff. These really jankily put together. So they are literally just glued together and not even kind of flush. You can see the fine is protruding out the top. And the fine side, where is it? Also, I think the fine side on this one has kind of like a dip in it. There you can see right here. It's like a dip in there. But because it's a low spot, you never really seem to contact it when you're sharpening. That's also not caused me an issue, luckily. But the sides on this, like where it's chamfered, are kind of sharp and wobbly, and I mean you can see when you look down there. They're kind of useless. Like, it stops you from going butt right up against the choil with it. I don't like it. Whereas when you go to the double stuff 2, they're kind of rounded, so you can't go butt up against the choil. But at least this rounded bit is useful. You can use that for serrations. Ugh, I know who has serrations, but at least you could if you had serrations. It's just better. The double stuff 2s I've had have never been warped, and I've not had any low spots in them. But this one did arrive chipped. Where's the chip? Here. Just where my finger is. It's just cosmetic damage. It does not affect this at all. But the CBN side is kind of a little bit junky. It seems at the ends here they completely missed just actually plating on any CBN. That's dead smooth. I can just feel like the nickel and the plate underneath, and there's no abrasive on it. And there's pretty consistent abrasive covered over the center section of it, but it was unbelievably coarse when it first arrived, and there was really huge particles protruding, and there still is. This is my junky sharpening tool Delica that I use, and I'm just going to see if I can kind of show you where I feel. Yeah, right here. It's kind of pushing me away there. I can't move the knife because it's hung up on a massive particle. And there's some at the end here. So kind of where I mentioned that there's no plating, as soon as you go from no plating to plating, there's some massive particles that just don't seem to knock off. Like in the center here, it feels pretty good, and then you get to the bottom and it's like, oh, you can hear it, look. I've tried to like cut that off, It just doesn't go. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like I'm really crapping on these, but the edges you can get off them are great. I might quickly go for a hair whittling edge and stick that on at the end. I'm not sure how I feel. These are tremendously better than Falkneven DC4s. Those are just total junk. The diamond side's junk, and the super ultra porous ceramic side is junk, and the CC4 with its fine side is also complete junk. I mean, they're flat, but they're junk. And these are the best ones, but chances are you don't actually need pocket sharpening stones. I just realised I haven't actually spoken about what the medium is like. Medium is exactly the same as the bench stone medium. I think they say it's like a 600 grit, but it cuts like 1,000. It cuts pretty slow. And the ultra coarse CBN is still so coarse that even going to the medium afterwards is going to take you quite a long time to remove all those scratches. Just don't bother going for shiny aesthetic edges with the pocket stones. Just use them to refresh your edge during the day. And that's kind of all I've got. I would definitely suggest carrying along, if you do have a pocket stone like this, I would say just get the double stuff 2 and get a piece of basswood and put some diamond compound on it. Carry those together. I wouldn't bother with the OG double stuff or the medium.